Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chem 1211 with your host, me, Dr. White. Hi, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to do the review for Quiz 2, which I'll be giving this Thursday. Let's see, when is that? Uh, the 27th, Thursday morning, 8 o'clock a.m. or earlier. I'll send out a password for the password protected PDF file that you can download on the assignment area. You'll be able to see that Thursday morning in Blackboard. And you'll have until Friday, 8 p.m. to take quiz 2 and upload your answers as a single PDF file, just like you did on quiz 1. And by Sunday or earlier, I'll have the scores posted on Blackboard, and I'll send out by Sunday 1 p.m. or Sunday afternoon, if not earlier. I'll send out email to each of you with the individual points on each answer on quiz 2. Now, because next week is the 4th of July, yay, and there's no school on the 4th of July, it's a federal holiday, I will not be giving the test number 1 then. What next week, and I'll be sending out tomorrow an email explaining this and also an announcement. Test number 1, you have to take at the COD Testing Center in Glen Ellen. The testing center, you'll be able to take it Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I'll be picking up the test, so you have to have it done by Tuesday. Testing center is open from 9 till 5 p.m., 9 a.m. Now, if you're going to need about an hour or a little more to take test 1, don't show up at 5 p.m. because they're closing. Get there at the latest by 3:30 each day if you're going to go there in the afternoon. And unfortunately, because of departmental rules, I have to give 2 tests and the final at the COD testing center. But because of next week, this Friday, and I'll put this in an announcement, on 7:30 p.m., I will do a review for test 1. If you can't make it, I'll record it and post it on my YouTube channel for Chem 1211. All right, let's talk about quiz 1 because that's coming up this Thursday. Oh, before I forget it, there was a bad mix-up between COD, mainly at COD, someone made a mistake, and Carolina Company. And the stuff for the periodicity and periodic table lab that I assigned for this Thursday wasn't put in the chem lab kit. And that's because somebody messed up at COD in the chem department. Right now, we're trying to figure out, and they're just about finished, we'll have an online lab to replace that where you don't need anything from your lab kit. So if you don't have that in your lab kit, which you shouldn't, don't be worried about that. All right, let's talk about quiz number 2. First of all, if you notice in the announcement I put out on Sunday, and you should have gotten an email, quiz 2 has 5 pages, 18 problems, including 6 multiple choice. It's worth 50 points. It will cover chapters 3 and 4, along with temperature conversions. And the rest of the announcement you're already familiar with. Now, if you go to course information, lectures, and scroll down, you'll see quizzes 1 and 2 review, both as a PDF file and as a Microsoft Word file. Last time I taught this, the same day I gave both quizzes 1 and 2. This semester I separated it, but I didn't have time to separate the review. And we're going to go through that now. Now, here's the review that you can download, and you'll see quizzes 1 and 2. For quiz 2, we're going to start here with the chapter 3. And these are things you should know. Hint, big hint for quiz number 2. What is matter? That is anything that has mass and occupies space. Now, when something's in red, hint, you should really know that. And matter, there are 3 states of matter. And you should know the 3 states are solid, liquid, and gas. You should also know, again, what you're seeing on the screen right now. You can download this from Blackboard. Solid has definite shape and definite volume. Liquid has indefinite shape but definite volume, and gas has indefinite shape, indefinite volume. And you should know the 3 states are solid, liquid, and gas, and that gas, solid has definite shape, definite volume, liquid has indefinite shape, definite volume, and gas has indefinite shape, indefinite volume. Now, when we talk about substances, there's pure substances and mixtures. And pure substances, you have element and compound. And an element is something that can't be broken down into smaller pieces by chemical means. A compound, you can break it down into smaller pieces by chemical means. And a mixture are 2 substances, whether element or compound or more, put together, and none of the components of the mixture lose their chemical identity. And you should be able to identify if something is a substance or a mixture. Like I said, my gold ring, is that a substance or a mixture? And the answer is element, gold, it's a substance. If I were to have here water with sugar in it, is that a mixture or a what's pure substance or an element? Well, guess what? It's a mixture. Sugar and water or salt and water. Guess what? The air you're breathing is a mixture, oxygen and nitrogen. Hopefully, you're all breathing, please. All right. Next, I talked about in the videos physical properties and chemical properties. And for this, I'm never going to ask you what's a physical property or a chemical property, but you should know examples. Example of physical property would be what's the melting point of water? Or a physical property would be what's the color of my shirt? Or if you looked out your window and saw a car, what's the color of that car? Now, a chemical property would be the water in my water bottle doesn't burn, is not combustible. But gasoline is very combustible. That would be a chemical property. And another one would be iron can rust. Gold will not rust. And that also is a chemical property, and you should know examples. Now, we have physical changes and chemical changes. A physical change is when something changes its physical appearance or its physical state. Example, if I have an ice cube in a glass and it melts, that's going from a solid to liquid, but the compound water is still the same. That's a physical change. Now, chemical change is when something changes its chemical identity. In other words, you come up with new molecules or chemicals. An example of that is when you, and don't try this at home, if you were to take a piece of paper and put a match underneath, it will catch fire and burn. And when that paper burns, the material that's the paper undergoes a chemical change. If you're driving around in a gasoline engine car, the gasoline undergoes a chemical change in your engine to produce the energy to make the car go. And that's a chemical change. Now, I will give you these three formulas for temperature changes, and you should know how to use each of those. And remember, the number 1.8 and 32 in the last two and 73 in the first one are exact numbers, and they don't have a role in determining the number of significant figures in your answer. Only the degrees C, Celsius, or Fahrenheit does. And let's do one quick example. All right, let's look at this question. If the outside temperature is 86.7 degrees F Fahrenheit, what's the temperature in Celsius? So what are we trying to find? And if you've watched my videos, you know I like to identify with a question mark, what are we trying to find? Degrees C. What are we given? The temperature in Fahrenheit, 86.7 degrees F. And degrees C is equal degrees F minus 32 divided by 1.8. And now I'll put in 86.7 degrees F, because that's what the temperature you're given. And we have this. And now I'll pick up my trusty calculator, turn it on, clear it, and you do the subtraction first, 86.7 minus 32. Then you divide that by 1.8. And my calculator gives me this number. And remember, on quiz 2, it will say underneath your name, please use proper significant figures for all calculated answer. And if you don't do the right significant figures for an answer, I'll take off a point, just like on quiz 1 and my tests and the rest of the quizzes. Well, how did you find that? Well, let's get colorful. 32 is an exact number. 1.8 is an exact number, part of the definition. It plays no role in how many significant figures. So the only answer or number you have is this 86.7, which is 3 significant figures. So your answer in this case should be 3 significant figures. How do we round that off? Keep the 3, keep the 0, keep the 3. use the 8 to round off. Is that 4 or less or 5 or higher? And hopefully pick 5 or higher. Therefore, I'll drop these right here and increase the number in front by 1. And the correct answer would be this: 3.04 times 10 to the 1. And I'd recommend keeping your calculator in scientific notation, but if you didn't, I'd also accept this is converting this into decimal form. And that's how you do temperature conversions. And I will give you these formulas, and you should know how to convert here. Now, what I won't do, which some instructors do, but it's not real world, what's the temperature in Kelvin if I give it to you in Fahrenheit? I don't do that because you got to do 2 conversions, and I've never had to do that in my career. You usually are going from degrees C to Kelvin, which you use this formula. All right, let's move into chapter 4. And now we start talking about some real chemistry. And the first thing I taught was an atom. And you should know what is an atom. And the atom is the smallest particle of an element that retains the characteristics of that element. If I had a particle of gold, silver, it would have all the characteristics of gold or silver. Now, when we talk about atoms, they are made up of subatomic particles. How many of you know what a submarine is? That's sub, underneath, marine, water. That's a boat that goes under the water. And no, I'm not going to start singing Yellow Submarine by the Beatles, because that would definitely ruin your day or evening. But subatomic particles are particles, small particles that are smaller than an atom that make up the atom. And you should know there are 3 subatomic particles. The first one is an electron. The second one is a proton. And the third one are the neutrons, or a neutron. You should know any electron has a negative charge. Any proton has a positive charge. And any neutron has no charge. Again, the 3 subatomic particles are electrons, protons, neutrons. Now, when I talked about this, I talked about 2 very important experiments that helped identify the subatomic particles. One is Thomson's cathode ray tube experiments. By the way, a cathode ray tube is what the old TVs look like. Let me see if I can find one. And here's a picture of the old TVs, not the ones we use now, very old. And this is called a cathode ray, where electrons are coming out from a source, and you have this magnetic field that will deflect them. Well, that helped Thomson determine that electrons have a negative charge. Now, when we talk about an atom, the center of an atom is the nucleus, and you should know that. The center of an atom, is a nucleus. Now, another great scientist, Rutherford, had what's known as his gold foil experiments, where he shot these very high energetic particles at very thin gold foil. And he had a and here we have a picture where you have the gold foil, very high energetic particles. Most of them went through, but some of them bounced back even. And that was unexpected because this one, like here, bouncing back is like shooting a cannonball at a piece of Kleenex or tissue paper and it bounces back. And from that, Rutherford was able to clarify means figures out that the nucleus is very dense and it contains only protons and neutrons. Again, you should know the center of an atom is the nucleus. And Rutherford's gold foil experiments showed that the nucleus contained only protons and neutrons. And we'll learn later on, you probably have already maybe watched a video, I hope so, that outside the nucleus are where the electrons are. Now, on the periodic table, we have the atomic number. And the atomic number is the number of protons in the nucleus. That's by definition. Since all atoms of elements have a net zero charge, the following is true. The atomic number equals the number of protons equals the number of electrons, which you also learned for quiz 1. And now in the videos, I started talking about the periodic table. Now, there are key groups that you should know the members of, and that is the alkali metals, the alkaline earth metals, the halogens, and the noble gases. Let's go to the periodic table you'll use for quiz 2. And here, the first column, but not including hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, and the others, but those are the ones I asked you to learn, are the alkali metal. Lithium, sodium, potassium, not hydrogen, are the alkali metals. Now, in the second column, under number 2, I only asked you to know 2 of the alkaline earth metals, and that's magnesium and calcium. Again, you should know the first column, not hydrogen, are the alkali metals. The second column are the alkaline earth metals. And if I asked you to give an example of and the chemical symbol of a alkali metal, you could put down Li, lithium, Na, sodium, K, potassium. Now, if we go all the way over to the right, to column set where the 7 is above, these are the halogens. And I only asked you to learn fluorine, chlorine, bromine, or iodine, and those are the halogens. And if you've ever been in the city of Chicago, the street lights are called halogen lights because they have halogen gas in there that a high energy electrical charge causes them to give off light. And that's the color of those lights. And you can also, they have LED, but before that, they had halogen lights for cars that are real bright. Oh, are they bright? And you should know that a halogen can be fluorine, chlorine, bromine, or iodine. And the final column under the number 8 are the noble gases: helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon. And the last one you don't have to know. But anyways, if I ask you, give an example and the chemical symbol of a noble gas, and you could pick Ne, neon, Ar, argon, or KR krypton. Those would all be good. Remember, in our world, krypton is a colorless gas that doesn't kill Superman. So you should know, first column, not hydrogen, alkali metals. Second column, alkaline earth metals. The column with the 7 above, second to the last on the right, are the halogens. And the very last column on the right are the noble gases. They used to be called inert gases until about, I think it was about 1995, a very ingenious chemist found a way to react those. And once they found a way that you could react them, they couldn't be called inert, and that's when the name changed to noble gases. And next, I talked about metals. Metals are an element that have certain characteristic properties. One is luster. That means you can shine them up, and they shine like gold. 2, they have thermal conductivity. They conduct heat. 3, they have electrical conductivity. They conduct electricity. And 4, they have a malleability. That means you can pound them down to very, very thin sheets. And you should know an example of a metal. Example would be aluminum, copper, iron, silver, gold, and so on. These are all metals. And if I ask you to give an example of a metal with the name and chemical symbol, you should be able to do that. And that's everything for quiz number 2. Remember, watch the videos, do the practice problems. I'll be talking about putting out an email tomorrow, an announcement about test 1, that next week, Monday and Tuesday, you have to take test number 1 at the COD Testing Center in Glen Ellen, and they're open from 9 till 5. But if you get there at 5, you're not going to be able to take the test because they're locking the doors. Now, some advice, and I'll put it in the email. When you go to the testing center, bring your own calculator. They have some, but you might not be familiar with it like you are with your own. So bring your own. I'd highly recommend you bring some pencils and a good eraser. These white ones are the best erasers. You'll need a photo ID, so make sure you bring that too. And with that, that's my review for for quiz number 2. Don't forget, I mentioned the lab coming up Thursday. There was a big goof up. Mainly it came from the COD side, not Carolina company, about not including the periodic table cards in the lab kit. And hopefully tomorrow sometime, I'll get the word what the lab will replace that with. And it's going to be online, so you don't need anything from your lab kit. And you'll do that. And with that, I'm done. I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. Don't forget, tomorrow, Wednesday, I'll have my office hour on Zoom from 6 to 6:30 to 7:30. And with that, I'll say gang gesund. Remember, that's in Yiddish, go in hell. COVID's still out there. My best friend a couple weeks ago went to a wedding in Seattle and he came back and he came down with COVID. Luckily, he was fully boosterized and with all. And so he just had a real bad cold and felt really bad for 2 weeks. I've got all my booster shots too. Hopefully I won't get, that's why I still wear a mask. He didn't on the plane. Wasn't a good idea. And with that, I'll say gang gesund. Goodbye now. Stick around. Remember, I stole that from Granny to Beverly Hillbillies. Bye now.